Live from St. John Fisher. We are in the pavilion between the two fields, the turf field, and then actually there's two more fields on this side, and there's a third field over there, so there's 4 fields overall. And on grass is normally the
feel for everything the way it is, the lay of the land again, and lots of things are the same that they have been for many years. They use a Beck practice field. A lot of the players go over there. They work on, what's defensive line, things like that. So you're always kind of figuring out where to be at what times, what to watch. And then obviously there's people you haven't seen in a while. You want to catch up with them. You want to say hi. That can be personal or professional, right? I mean, like there's things going on like, hey, what's happening this day? What's happening that day? You have to do all that stuff. And then right afterwards, we have things. We have the Facebook Lives that are going on that behind the scenes at training camp that you can check that out. We do that every single day, driven by your Upstate Honda dealer. So, there's a lot going on. And then today did not start off great. I had a big cup of coffee. I went to my car to grab something. You put your coffee on top of the car, right?
Yeah.
I opened the door. I'm like, okay. I shut the door, and the coffee just crashed down. I have no coffee now.
Yep.
Until I go back and get some right after this segment up in my dorm room before the Joe Brady.
That's better than me. I usually put the coffee on the car and then I drive away.
I had to stop myself a couple times. That's right.
That's my move. We're here at training camp. It's day 2 today. All right, observations from day 1. Actually, before we do that, you're talking about catching up with people. Like we saw Pete Gwelly, Bills COO, talking about the red helmets, talking about the new rivalries uniforms. We don't have any full intel on the rivalries uniforms, but from what I hear from a number of people, this isn't something Pete said, but others, they're cool. I think people are going to like them. So there is. I did ask him like, what's the timeline on that, and he said like the league. So that one's a little bit maybe off in the distance. That's more of a league-wide thing because there are 8 teams that are going to be getting these rivalry series. Anyway, observations from camp yesterday. It's a lot of red zone stuff, which I learned yesterday is normal to start because they don't want their guys running 70-yard bombs and all that stuff. They want to kind of get everybody in the mix, so it's kind of a lighter practice, shorter practice, less distance run. Red zone to start.
Yeah, red zone to start. 7-on-7 red zone specifically to start. They have different periods they work on all the time during practices. They hit the ground running, and this is a very important part, red zone, obviously. Interesting, the first few plays, Josh Allen didn't connect. A couple interceptions, a couple throwaways, an incompletion. And he said afterwards, it was interesting in the press conference with us, he said, I know statistically it didn't look good for you guys, but I'm just trying not to put the ball in harm's way. And then he also mentioned hard knocks. He mentioned not liking being mic'd up. And it was interesting for me to him for thinking about it, right? He's thinking about how people might perceive what's going on these first few throws in the red zone. Statistically, he's mentioning hard knocks being there. And that's all a little bit of what we talked about, right? And how much this all impacts what's going on here. But they did start with that. I was really impressed with the rookie Max Hairston yesterday. I really was. I thought that he had a nice day. He had the highlight play of the day when he peeled off. It was Laviska. I'm sorry, who was it? KJ Hamler. KJ Hamler's in the back of the end zone, standing there, and it looked like, and you see the video on the Bills Twitter. It looked like he was going to get the ball. He's the only one who could catch it. Max Hairston comes out of nowhere, knocks the ball away. Before that, he's on Curtis Samuel. Curtis Samuel catches the ball kind of near the front pylon, and before he can turn up, Max Hairston gets there so quick, he rides him out of bounds and doesn't allow him to do that. So, I think that a strong day, number one, I always say we have to wait until pads come on for a lot of this stuff. Like, I don't watch offensive and defensive linemen much for the first few days only because of that.
Yep. Yeah. Joe had even said, like, Hairston's the kind of guy that in this exact setting is probably likely to flourish. I mean, he's fast, he's speedy, the recovery speed. He's a guy that's going to gamble out there. Red zone's another spot where, like, you might be more willing to do that. So it'll be interesting to see how he picks his spots, right? Like, Sal, if you've got a corner that you drafted him and you say, we did it because of his upside ball skills, he can make big plays, he knows that too, and how they find that balance of how aggressive, when to be aggressive, like that's going to be part of learning the job.
No doubt. I believe people keep saying, what would it take for Max Hairston to win the job? Because we could say when fans are here, we are allowed to say like who's playing with the starters, right? And I can tell you that Tre'Davious White, as predicted, got the first reps with the starting unit, and then Max Hairston mixes in, but they both get opportunity. Mm-hmm. Eric Wood made a great point when he was on with me the other day. He said, you're going to want to see both guys against the same competition. If you're going to compete, you got to give them a chance to compete against the same competition, right, in evaluation. So what does it take for him to maybe be the first guy to get more of the reps? I believe it just takes for him not to show he's going to make mistakes. Because I think the high-end plays can be there. At any time, he can make a great play, and make a play on a ball that somebody else can't make. But can he make the solid play, the good decision, not get beat, and be consistent enough in that regard?
And I wonder, there are a couple plays like this. There was at least one I'm thinking of, Sal. I think he was going up against Samuel where he gets beat off the line, and maybe he's back a little bit, but he's so fast that he recovers, and he's there in coverage to make a play. I wonder how the Bills would view that. Like, is that considered a mistake for him, but this is why you drafted him? Like, he can kind of misstep off the line of scrimmage, unlike some other corners, because he's so fast. He's got that recovery speed.
Yep.
I wonder how the Bills coaches would view that, because they definitely don't want him getting beat off the line. But with him, again, he's somebody that sometimes can make up for it.
I also think just the nature of this, the way their philosophy of building this team and drafting, they've kind of intentionally gone for guys like that, which are, hey, we might have to live with a few mistakes, but we're going to get more high-end play out of these guys, and the ceiling is really there. I just think that's kind of the way they drafted and they approached this offseason anyway. They took bigger swings. You know, Matt Nabove and I did a podcast a couple months ago comparing Brandon Beane and Brett Veach because they've been in their jobs the same amount of time.
Yep.
Because I think there's this, notion from a lot of Bills fans that, you know, the Bills are just not good in the draft or whatever. Most teams, everybody's kind of the same when it comes to rate of hit and miss. I think a lot of it comes down to, but how high are your hits? Like how good can they be?
Yeah.
And the thing that we noticed that I think I could say Matt and I both agreed on, Brandon Beane really has a really good floor for guys he drafts, especially late, mid-round. Like, there's guys that contribute, guys that stay here. I mean, I'm going to use DeMar Hamlin as an example. I mean, he was a 6th-round pick. He was starting on a team at safety. He went to the AC Championship game last year. Remember Jaquan Johnson? That was like a 6th or 7th-round pick who played 4 years in this league. Taron Johnson, yes, there are misses. But what he was missing, what he hasn't had, is truly the Josh Allen high-end type of plays. I think Taron Johnson's actually great at what he does. Whereas Brett Veach, let's say, for the Chiefs, they have 3 or 4 guys that are all pros every year. They smash it through the ceiling. But they don't have necessarily that low end raising the floor. It's kind of all or nothing with a lot of it. I think the Bills have a good base of guys, but now they need the all.
Right.
You know what I mean? They need those guys. They don't have enough of those guys. And I think they took a philosophy this year to say, we're going to draft these guys that have a chance to smash. And if we get beat, if we get burned because they don't turn out, we're going to have to live with it, but we need playmakers.
Yeah, I was just going to say a lot of this year to me is finding the next set of stars, whether that's, Benford's established as like he's great, whether that's Hairston or Landon Jackson or Deion Walker in the 4th round or whatever, like somebody that is, it's a bit arbitrary, but I kind of said, what I want is the Bills to have more players on the top 100. Just thought of better by players in the league. Oh, that's Josh Allen and 4 other great players because for a long time, or for a while here, 2 years now, it's been like Josh and Dawkins makes it. Benford makes it.
Isn't Benford?
But even Benford, maybe
he's a great example.
He's not getting enough, right?
Right.
Benford is a great example of this point, which is, I think we all know how good Christian Benford is. He is just a really, really good football player. He's not this smashing statistical interception guy that goes to becomes an all pro and Pro Bowls and things like that. that's a great example of what I mean, which is, man, they really found a guy. 6th round. Like, I mean, he's a great 6th-round pick, right?
Yeah.
But he's not in the conversation outside of Buffalo as one of the best in the league. And unlike Josh Allen, who obviously is, or Taron Johnson, I think those are the two guys you look at for that. And, maybe a few years ago, Matt Milano, obviously, right, who's on the team now. So you have some of those guys, Deion Dawkins, but, man, I think that's a great example of what I'm talking about.
Should Benford be? Like
I don't know.
He's front and center on that Hard Knocks poster. We talked about that, and as we talked about yesterday at camp too, he looked dominant. Sal, like it didn't matter what receiver he was covering. It looked like he had no problem sticking right with whoever he was against.
Yesterday, you're talking about
Benford,
during the day yesterday, during the practice. Yeah, I think he's just super solid.
Yeah,
he is the quintessential Buffalo Bills defensive back that they want here, which is we could trust everything you do. We don't have to worry about it. He's going to be where he's supposed to be, when he's supposed to be there, and he's going to make some plays. But there's not a time in a game, in a season, where we're worried about that spot.
Right.
I think that, to me, that's where Max Hairston has to get. Because the other side, which is, well, he can make a play.
Yeah.
Okay, make a play, Max, right? Knock a ball down, get an interception. But are you going to be comfortable saying, oh, yeah, we got Max Hairston over there. He's set. We don't have to worry about it. We don't have to give him help. We don't have to worry about him busting a coverage or anything like that. That's where he has to get.
It might be a hard day to evaluate safeties because it's red zone stuff, right? Like the field's compacted, but a lot of people are wanting to know about Cole Bishop and how he looks, health, his role in this defense, how important it is that he does lock down the job that I think a lot of Bills fans, of course, want him to lock down.
I think the Bills want him to lock it down, guys, right? I mean, that's the only thing he has to do is show up and be healthy. I really believe that. Like, he's good enough. He's gonna be the starter. I can't see a scenario where Cole Bishop isn't healthy and on the field and suddenly isn't the starter at safety opposite Taylor Rapp. What would have to go wrong there? Because he suddenly he's not the player you thought he was. He showed some really good things on film when he also had a couple busts. We know that. But I just think this is his job to have as long as he's healthy. Tough to say how they look right now. Obviously, they're rotating in. There's no pads, things like that. We'll see when they go to those kinds of things. But I think they believe they can use him in the box. They can use him at free safety. And that frees Taylor Rapp up to do a lot of things. You couldn't play those games as much with DeMar last year.
Right.
DeMar's kind of this steady baseline guy who you got to put in certain spots to make sure that you're not going to get beat.
And that's always been a key to McDermott's defense is what he can do with those two safeties.
100%. And that's why Micah and Jordan were so good for so long. On top of how great they were, they played off each other. They were able to do different things all the time, and that's exactly right.
How about the offense? Anything impressive come away? It looked like there was some. We talked about the throwaways that Josh Allen had, and he talked about that. But anything stand out in a positive way for the offense?
Yeah, I thought Dalton Kincaid had a nice first day. After all the talk from Dalton and about Dalton this offseason, I thought Dalton Kincaid had a good first day. Now, I will tell you there was one touchdown he caught that would have been a sack if they were doing that. Josh kept the play alive. The defensive backs are still doing their thing, but Dalton made a nice play, caught at the back of the end zone. Then there was another one where kind of right in the same area in the end zone, and Dalton saw Josh working. He worked his way back to the quarterback. There were two defenders, and he kind of slid in between the two defenders to get back to the quarterback. Josh made a nice throw. I think the defenders like, oh, shoot, didn't realize he was right there. It was a really good job of kind of staying alive. I thought he had a good day right there, and this is what the Bills need. Obviously, Dawson Knox is going to be out. And by the way, the word on Dawson, the word on Spencer, both, neither Sean McDermott or Brandon Beane seem very overly concerned. They kind of both said, we're going to be really cautious. Like, these guys are vets.
Yeah.
They'll get on the field. We know they know what to do once they get on the field. So I'm not too worried about that. Laviska Shenault did, according to the NFL Transaction Wire last night, he has not been announced by the Bills, I don't believe yet. He was placed on NFI as well, so I wouldn't expect him on the field today either. And then Cedric Van Pran Granger with a calf injury.
When that list, a player gets placed on that list as opposed to the PUP list, what's the difference there? Does that just mean that it happened away from the facilities?
It did, and I think because of that, there's certain things with monies and contracts that get impacted, especially down the road if they stay on that list. Like Nyheim Hines, remember?
Right.
How the Bills went through that whole thing with Nyheim Hines?
Right.
And it was the jet ski accident. So, yes, that's the difference.
Sal Capaccio. Sal, for day one, we've gotten some big names, right? Hairston and Cole Bishop and Trey White and Christian Benford. anybody that isn't a household name yet that kind of popped out at you? I know it's day one, but, there's a lot of players out here, whether it's one of the tight ends they brought in or anybody. Did anybody pop out for you that might not be, a top-of-mind kind of name?
Well, I think they are both top of mind, but a couple of names I heard people talking about and watched yesterday and said, okay, we're both the two defensive tackles, Deion Walker and TJ Sanders. A couple of guys that I think, we're going to be watching more of. And again, I say, I don't spend a ton of time on D-line, O-line during these days because there's no pads. But when you see them and their physicality and their size, it stands out to you. So I would say for that reason, Jeremy, those are guys. I don't think there's anybody necessarily. I don't know if we give. I don't want to start giving too much space to like the bottom end of the wide receiver depth chart, but. Like KJ Hamler and Jalen Virgil both made plays yesterday, right? Like, I mean, you never know. Is there a scenario in a world where at the end of camp we're like, maybe it's not Elijah Moore. Maybe it's one of these guys. They can both move a little bit, right? You need to see more of that, but I thought both of them made a couple plays yesterday.
Keon Coleman yesterday, a couple of tough plays for him. He's one, we talked about it with your podcast partner there, Matt Beauvais, that – he's another one you might want to see in pads because of the style he plays.
Yeah.
He plays like a bully out there. He's probably not going to grow into an elite separator at any point, but what he probably has to do, Sal, is play with his body and win contested catches. And that was the thing yesterday that, like, if they're going back and watching yesterday, I feel like there were a couple of those that you'd like to see him grab.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be how he wins in this league. He's not going to win by blowing by people. That'll happen once in a while, maybe. He's got to win in this league by making the contested catches, by being a guy who can catch the ball even when he's covered sometimes. And Josh knows that. He's going to have to get him the ball in those spots. So we're going to have to see that as camp goes on. We're going to have to see that as you get into the preseason and regular season. And, yeah, I mean, this goes back to the different skill sets these guys have at wide receiver. And you have to have guys who can catch the ball when they're covered sometimes. And I think Keon Coleman's got to be one of those guys.
Sal Capaccio joining us here from St. John Fisher.
James Cook showing up yesterday and doing everything, and how Bean sounded, Sal, is how Bean sounded changing your mind at all on what you think is most likely with him in a contract? Probably at this point, though, more after the season.
Yeah, I still don't think there's any contract on the horizon while here, unless something drastically changes in either way either party thinks, but it appears that that's not the case right now. Good that James Cook is here. Good that James Cook was doing everything. I think the Bills, Sean McDermott, Brandon Bean, they appreciate that he's not a distraction by being here and not practicing. Mm-hmm. We all talked about it, guys. If he showed up yesterday, he didn't practice, it'd be a huge story around the league.
Yeah. Not
just here. You'd be talking about it all morning.
It would have stolen every single headline.
It would have been dominating your conversation.
Yep.
Your social media.
Hard Knocks goes code red. But
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you talked about it first segment. Sorry I wasn't listening, but you probably didn't spend a lot of time on it.
Yeah.
Because it's not much of a story now.
I just mentioned that Bean's tone seems like, at least to me, that the dialogue is still open.
He said it.
Because way back when, it felt like it was very much, sorry, we're so far apart that I think it created, if we're really going to the steps along the way, Cook tweets the $15 million, and that's like, whoa. And then Bean at one point kind of painted the picture of, maybe next year we'll talk about it, next offseason. And that was another shot that kind of went into how far apart they might be. And they still might be far apart, but it certainly seems like it's whether it's amicable or whatever it might be. It seems like Bean's talking about how it's him or someone else in the front office that are constantly in contact with the agent. So there is an open dialogue.
And I thought it was interesting he said about even next year. And I hope that we get here next year and James Cook is a member of the Buffalo Bills. And there are different levers to make that happen. It doesn't have to be a contract extension. You have the franchise tag. You have the transition tag, right? I mean, the Bills still hold the leverage as far as him being, his rights, so to say. So they can make that happen if they want to happen. It really just comes down to value. It's never been about, do the Bills not want James Cook on the team? The Bills want James Cook on the team. It's all about what the value is of James Cook on the team.
So the transition tag at running back would be interesting. I don't think they'd franchise.
Right.
The transition tag at running back this year was $11 million.
That's right.
Well, and that's a number that a lot of
here's the issue with it.
The issue is that that's a straight cap hit.
And it comes right away.
Right, and they're not going to want to do
right.
that. So,
And also, you really are preventing the player at a position that has a finite timeline of getting his big deal.
Yes.
Like, I wonder if the Bills would, for the team, it might make more sense, but would they want to do that to a guy and basically, like, okay, you're not going to be eligible now to sign your big contract until you're, 27, 28 years old? I wonder if they would want to even do that to him.
I agree. It's not a preferred look. Teams, the Bills don't use it very often. Teams basically try not to, but they do in certain situations. But it is something that could happen. If you get to the end of the year and he has a great year, the Bills are like, oh, yeah, we got to make sure we keep him. And you have this transition, which goes to maybe $12 million.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's a suitable way. But as Jeremy pointed out, which is right, the issue is, do you even have that cap number on hand to do it? Because you have to count it right away against the cap, and it's straight that money that year.
That's where you could do the kind of thing like the Giants did with Barkley that one year, where they brought him back at the franchise number, but with something else, so they could lower the cap hit. So, next year, if it got really sticky, the Bills could go to Cook and say, hey, listen, here's what's going to happen. We're going to transition tag you, so if you won't agree to a deal, because we want to keep you, if they wanted to do this. And that's $11 million. Or we could give you 12 over 2 years working around where you're still getting the same amount of guaranteed money, but we get to split that cap over 2 years, put a void year on the end of it, or whatever it might be. Like, the cap is so workable that sometimes the franchise tag is the thing that doesn't ever have to be used. It's just a lever to get the parties
That's
talking.
exactly right.
That's what gets parties talking.
It extends the opportunity to and extends out the timeline of the opportunity to sign a new deal is what it actually does.
And it kind of establishes a floor. Hey, worst case scenario, you're getting this amount of guaranteed money, but it doesn't really work for me, the team, because it doesn't help on the cap, and I don't want to do that.
Right.
So
yes.
We'll see. All right, Sal, practice number 2.
Practice number 2, bar build tonight. And listen, if you can't make it, how about this? On Sunday, Matt and I are back at it again. Sunday afternoon, if you guys are around, you should come on up. 2:30 p.m. We're going to be at We the Hobby. We the Hobby is a really cool – we're going to step out of our – I wouldn't say comfort zone because, Mac's a big card collector and I've done this, but we're going to have a couple breakers on the air, breaking cards open.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you know what I mean? They have a big show going on.
Yeah.
Big fan fest, basically.
Nice.
Lots of cool stuff happening there. We the Hobby, give you the address there, 23 Arlington Street in Rochester. It's a big day, and it's going to be they're calling it the after-practice tailgate. And it's going to be like from 2 to 7. We're there from 2:30 to 3:30 doing the podcast.
Cool.
Come on out. We're going to have people on there doing cards and having a good time.
All right. Sal
It's Sunday.
Capaccio. So he'll be updating throughout practice coming up in the Northtown Automotive Extra Point Show. And Joe Brady today will carry live.
Joe Brady, 9:15. Yeah.
9:15. So Joe Brady's on the way. Training camp coverage continues here on WGR.